For someone, as I said from the very beginning, for some reason I was familiar with Shinedown, who actually really enjoyed this album. The interludes, going back to what Kyle was saying before, I mean, some of the interludes did work for me, like the way that they edited them and they segued into the songs. Like I'm just looking back, like you could have definitely done without 2184. I agree with you on that. No, but I agree with Mike actually to a good extent, where like the first half of the album really does hit hard, like No Sleep Tonight, title track, Planet Zero. I mean, I've said this before, but title tracks for me personally always work, no matter what album it is. Like that's a great song, the title tracks are always pretty good. Dysfunctional You, I agree with you. Like the lyric, if I'm not mistaken, it was the only one with any curse words in the whole album. If I'm not mistaken, right? It was Dysfunctional You was the only one with curse words, right?
I have no idea.
Okay, because I was listening to it on Spotify and the E came up for the explicit. I was like, oh, okay. But I didn't really. That doesn't bother me. I'll listen to the whole album, whatever. But Dysfunctional, I agree with, it got a little cheesy at some points. I agree with Mike on that. But there's some of the ballads on it, like the more like, but they were harder edge ballads, which reminded me of stuff like When Love and Hate Collide by Def Leppard to some extent. Like, so like Daylight was like a piano song, and I was like, that just threw me off in a really good way, though. It threw me off in a really good way. I was like, oh wait, they're actually playing like a ballad, but it's on the piano for like a band that I thought initially was like, oh, just heavy guitars and all that. And it actually really worked for me. Symptom of Being Human, I've definitely felt the emotion in there, like because everything's been going on in the world for the past several years. It definitely felt that for me personally. Sure Is Fun definitely was fun for me personally. I mean, I was listening to it, yeah, this is good. I mean, I only listened to it once through, like literally 2 hours before we started recording this video. But because I was like, I want to have it fresh in my mind, I want to have it ready to go. Saints of Violence and Innuendo, and Army of the Underappreciated. I'm stuttering, forgive me. Army of the Underappreciated are great. I do like those tracks a lot, and we're all in agreement here. What you wanted was not really what we wanted as an album closer, unfortunately. But overall, I did really like. As an overall album, though, would I go back and listen to it again? Yeah, I definitely would, because there's some albums we could talk about on our show that we would never want to hear again. It's like Maroon 5's Jordy. But like there are some great songs on this album though. And I think that if you have not heard the new Shinedown album, if you're someone like me who's just hasn't really been exposed to them like fully, check this one out for sure. Cause a lot of really solid songs on there in general. Some of the ballads are really like drawn out, and I shouldn't say drawn out, but they're really well put together. I could definitely feel the emotion in a lot of songs in like that gritty way, like the dark way. But overall, I think it was a really solid record. I mean, I as someone who's never really listened to Shinedown before, this is pretty damn good, guys. So yeah, those are my initial track impressions and whatnot too. So
I will say, JT, if you enjoyed Daylight,
yes.
I definitely recommend you check out their Sound of Madness album.
Okay.
It's probably a top 3 album of all time for me.
Okay.
That's what got me into them initially, and it's incredible. Mm-hmm. But this is one of the closest we've gotten since then. The album that followed that up, Amaryllis, had a little bit of that sound too, but they expanded on it a bit. This, I think, is the closest we've gotten since then to that just straight up like rock sound, and I really like it. I want to hit on the interludes one more time here.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Because it's almost broken up as every 2 songs or so. Mm-hmm. There's an interlude, with the exception of America is Burning, which has an interlude before and after it. To me, that is way overkill. Like that annoys me a little bit. Other than that, I think the longest you go on this without any kind of interlude is 3 songs. I believe they're all ballads. So, I don't know. I wish they didn't do that. But interesting, Mike, that Sure Is Fun was your least favorite here.
I'm telling you, Kyle and I, my only exposure to Shinedown was like Home Depot radio. Okay, Home Depot radio. Also, Kyle, I believe you may have given me an album to review. Did you ever give me an album?
I think so. I think I gave you Sound of Madness.
Sound of Madness, which was a pretty solid album. I'm not a huge fan of certain styles of rock, radio rock, that tend to kind of sit in the realm of like Nickelback or like I'm trying to think of another band that they all get kind
Like
of
Three Doors Down, or
yeah, I mean Three Doors Down is okay.
Theory of
Yeah,
a Dead
I
Band.
mean, what was it?
Theory of a Dead Band.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know too much about that. I probably know them by accident. So that I
You heard
tend
it
to
in
like.
Home Depot.
I'm sure of it. I'm sure of it. Like, and it's, I wouldn't say it's Southern rock and roll because some of them do have that vibe to them, which I love that, but it can be uh it can be a touchy genre because it can get kind of cheesy with the lyrical content, like which hits me on a different level with like some of the Nickelback like attitude in the song. I tend not to like that kind of stuff, the cockiness. I tend to like you know kind of stay away from that kind of stuff. But yeah, like I kept getting Train vibes for some reason with this album, like oh the Train, like um the way he like enunciates his words, like the way he ends his like yeah, like he does this kind of like I can't explain it, but I kept getting that vibe from them, like a little bit of Train vibe, and also Nick which is funny because the one I was listening to on YouTube was uploaded by Nickelback Universe was the name of the up the uploader, and I thought, what? No, I'm in the Nickelback universe. How did I get here? And I was cruising through the Nickelback universe. I landed on Planet Nine, or wait, Planet Zero. Excuse me, not Planet Nine. And my ship is crashed, and I don't know how I got here, but like, yeah, like it was funny. It was just I didn't get too much of a Nickelback vibe, but at times I did. So overall, it was very hit and miss for me in that, like, beginning to the middle to like the ending. I felt like those songs where someone's just using a foot bass pedal and to keep the beat of the song, and it's just like do like it's these more like country kind of country rock songs. They were doing that stuff on, I think it might have been, I remember the name of the song. Towards the end. Actually, I think it might have been Daylight, actually. And I kind of felt like it was not my style of rock song or ballad. It just kind of felt a little boring on my end. But overall, yeah, like I said before, like the ending was kind of hurt it, except that innuendo song, which is great. But yeah, it was a weird change of pace.
So I definitely know where you're coming from with that Southern rock thing. That doesn't surprise me at all. Their earlier music had more of that sound to it as well. I mean, their first album, one of the big hits on that was their cover of Simple Man, which they still do live to this day, and it's great. I honestly prefer it over the original, but that does definitely come out a little bit still, not nearly as much as it used to. Their first album, maybe even two albums, was kind of like that Southern rock mixed with like that grungy alternative sound of like the early 2000s. They really went like radio rock. It's like Sound of Madness onwards. I mean, this album, it's going to be these songs, you could just see them being a hit on like Sirius Octane or whatever, all those like butt rock radio stations on XM, Sirius, whatever. I think this album did go number one, at least on the rock charts. So it did sell very well. Yeah, I gotta give it to him on this one. I went into it with kind of low expectations, and it did a lot better for me than I thought it was going to.
Oof. The Belgians weren't happy with it, man. What's going on, man?
They were not.
Flanders, man.
So for those of you who are listening to us on Spotify podcast, what we have put up are the charts around the world for Planet Zero. Australian digital albums was 5. The peak position was 5. Australian physical albums was 48. Austrian was 21. Belgian was 113. Canadian albums was 46. German albums in the top 100 there was 15. Japanese hot albums were 99. Scottish was number 2. Swiss was number 10. The UK was number 4. UK rock and metal albums was number 1. The U.S. Billboard 200, which is the all albums, format one chart, was number 5 actually, and then the last 3 were number 1s. U.S. top alternative albums number 1, U.S. top hard rock albums number 1, U.S. top rock albums number 1. And so it did. I mean, Kyle, I mean, I don't know certification wise because it just came out in July, like this month. But I mean, I'm sure, but that shows, I guess, that it did well, which is good.
Yeah, and fans seem to love it too. It's definitely what I wanted from them. Their last 2 albums prior to this, they were both good. I don't think they were as good as this one.
Mm-hmm.
But really, I just love the songwriting on this. I've always loved Brent Smith's lyrics, and he's one of my favorite vocalists too. So really to have a album like this from them with like cohesive themes throughout was really nice to see. And like I said, I really enjoy how I've seen so many people arguing like left and right politics about it. And I believe it was either an interview or like YouTube video, whatever it was. They had just said it's up to interpretation. Take it how you want. Like it's just our words out there. It doesn't matter what we think. It's what you take from the song. And that's what I think all music should be. I don't particularly like bands that put out really in your face messages like this is what we're saying. Like Green Day's my favorite band, so it might be a little hypocritical. But
yeah,
like
directly naming someone that they don't like in the song, or like like I agree 100% with you about that. Like I prefer a very kind of like I wouldn't say cryptic, but I would say something that allows multiple interpretations rather than like the song is called like F Donald Trump, or like something of that along that lines, or like down with the Democrat, or whatever.
Let's
or like
Brandon, yeah,
right. And on both sides, like I don't prefer too much like kind of like the specific target of like either side. It's nice to see some keep it artistic vision versus like just a personal vendetta against whatever things the artist is wanting to vent on their audience. It's kind of ugly.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I mean, you want to, I mean, not to, in no way, shape, or form are we getting political on our show. I made that rule officially for anything I've ever done. No, don't do it. But I will say what I love that Shinedown did here was, you're right though, they did leave it up to your own interpretation. So it could have been more left, it could have been more right, it could have been something completely different, which I like that a lot. I wish more bands and more artists in general would not be like this or that completely. You know what I mean? I'd rather just say like a generic. If you're gonna be like a topical, right? If you're gonna have like a topical record, then just like be like very in the middle about it, compared to like, oh, it's completely like a Green Day's American Idiot, you know what I mean, or like or the far right. Either way, just what I loved about this record was, yes, they're saying things like America's burning. They're also saying stuff like a symptom of being human. They're obviously touching on recent events, but they're not saying, do this, vote for this person sucks, whatever. They're not being so political with it. And that's what I liked about it. And my first exposure to a Shinedown album, I go back to this album in a heartbeat now that I think about it. Because like the more I think about the tracks, when I heard, I did like what I hear overall. And it was 48 minutes long. And the longest song on the record is like 4 minutes and 8 seconds, which I like a lot too. There's not like a 5-minute track. There's no 2-minute track. They're all really solid
tracks.
Aside from the interludes, this has actually got some really good stuff on it. I would go back to a lot of these tracks, if not the whole album. So yeah.